You know the feeling, right? You have a crazy, stressful day, and the next thing you know, you're halfway through a pint of ice cream or a bag of chips without even really thinking about it. It's this powerful, almost magnetic pull toward comfort food. So today, let's get into the fascinating science of why that actually happens.
Yeah, this quote really hits the nail on the head. It's not just a little craving, is it? It feels like this deep biological need. And if that sounds familiar to you, trust me, you are definitely not alone. We're about to see how this urge goes so much deeper than just a simple lack of self-control. So, is it just about willpower? That's the big question, right? It's so easy to beat ourselves up thinking, ugh, I just need to be stronger. But here's the thing science is telling us loud and clear. It is not a moral failing. Not at all. It's actually a really complex biological response happening inside your brain and your body. All right, so to really get what's happening here, we've got to start with a basic idea. Not all hunger is the same. Our bodies have two totally different kinds of hunger signals, and knowing how to tell them apart, well, that's the first step to cracking this whole thing. Okay, so on one hand, you've got what's called homeostatic hunger. The easiest way to think about this is like the fuel gauge in your car. It's your body just sending a simple biological signal saying, hey, we're running low on energy, we need fuel. That's the need to eat. But then there's hedonic hunger. And this is a whole different beast. This is the want to eat. It's driven purely by pleasure and has nothing to do with whether your body actually needs energy. And you guessed it, this is the one pulling the strings when we stress eat. So what's actually going on inside your brain when stress hits and suddenly all you can think about is a cookie? Well, a brilliant study from Harvard actually used brain imaging to peek inside people's heads during a stressful moment. And what they found is really fascinating and honestly not what you'd expect. The way they set this up was pretty smart. They got two groups of people, folks who said they were emotional eaters and folks who said they weren't. First, they stressed them out with a tough task. Then they measured their cortisol, that's the main stress hormone, and then the really cool part, they put them in a brain scanner and showed them pictures of delicious food, just to see what their brains would do. Okay, now here is the big surprise. You'd think that for the emotional eaters, seeing that amazing food would make their brain's pleasure centers light up like a Christmas tree, right? But the study found the complete opposite. They were definitely more anxious and had more cortisol, but the reward centers in their brains were actually less active. They went quiet. It's like their whole pleasure system got turned down, not up. So what does that even mean? If your brain isn't giving you that normal feel-good hit from seeing something you like, what do? Well, the theory is you start overeating to compensate. You're trying to eat enough to basically jumpstart that reward system, to force it back online, just to feel normal again. You're pretty much self-medicating to get things back to baseline. And this isn't just happening in the brain. That's only half the story. See, this whole thing is connected to a huge chemical cascade happening all over your body. Stress basically unleashes hormones that completely hijack your normal appetite signals, creating the perfect storm for emotional eating. Just look at this breakdown. It's wild. You've got three main hormones controlling your appetite. First, leptin. That's the one that tells your brain, hey, we're full. But under stress, your brain basically puts its fingers in its ears and can't hear leptin anymore. At the exact same time, ghrelin, the go-eat hormone, starts screaming for attention, driving cravings for high-calorie foods. And if that weren't enough, insulin, which also helps you feel satisfied, just stops working as well. It's a total hormonal triple threat that leaves you feeling hungry and unsatisfied.
Now, for a lot of us, emotional eating is just a thing we do sometimes to cope. But it's really important to know that this all exists on a spectrum. And for some people, it can move from just a coping habit to something much more serious, a diagnosable clinical disorder.
The official diagnostic manual, the DSM-5, lists several eating disorders that are directly linked to this kind of emotional dysregulation. You'll see things in there like binge eating disorder, bulimia nervosa, and another one called OSFED, which is kind of a broader category. The point is, this is way beyond just overeating. These are significant mental health conditions. Let's zoom in on binge eating disorder, or BED, for a second, because it's the most common and ties right back to what we've been talking about. The absolute key feature here isn't just the amount of food, it's that powerful, overwhelming sense of lack of control. And then what comes after? Intense feelings of disgust, depression, or guilt. It's that exact same vicious cycle we just saw in the neuroscience. Okay, I know this can sound like a lot. We've hit on brain chemistry, hormones, the clinical side. It can feel a little heavy. But here's the really hopeful part. Once you understand the biology, you can start to see how to actually fix it. And the key is working with your biology instead of constantly fighting against it. And one of the absolute best tools we have in our toolkit? Exercise. And here's why it's so powerful. It's a 2-for-1 deal. On the one hand, it's a fantastic way to regulate your emotions and deal with stress, but it also directly helps fix the hormonal chaos we were just talking about.
This image here shows it perfectly. Exercise goes in and directly counteracts what stress does to your hormones. It helps your brain start to hear that "I'm full" signal again. It tells that "go eat" hormone to quiet down. And it improves how your whole system responds to insulin. It's literally like hitting a biological reset button.
So what kind of exercise actually works? Well, the great news is you've got options. Things like moderate cardio, running, swimming, cycling, that's great. So is strength training. Even flexibility stuff like yoga or Pilates can make a huge difference. The real secret sauce, though, is just consistency. Aiming for something like 3 to 5 times a week for maybe 30 minutes or so, that's where you get that amazing 1-2 punch of balancing your mood and your hormones.
All right, so let's bring it all home. If there is just one thing you take away from all this, please let it be this. The urge to eat when you're emotional is not a character flaw. It is not a failure of willpower. It's a deep-seated biological drive.
What it is this incredibly complex dance between your brain's reward circuits, your body's chemical messengers, and the ways you've learned to cope over your lifetime. And understanding that science, well, it does more than just explain the behavior. It empowers you to approach it with some compassion and to find strategies that actually work.
And that kind of leaves us with one final thought. Now that you've seen the science, now that you know the biology isn't your fault, what does that change? The real question is, what triggers your relationship with food? And how can you start using this knowledge to maybe rewrite that story?